Welcome Average Joe Nation from around the globe. Props to you for staying up to date and keeping in the know. Fantasy football, man, very soon you'll reign. The knowledge that these three guys have, man, it is insane. Fantasy football talk, hateful eight, they wear the crown. Hold it down, Pickle, Blackburn, and Trimboli, hold it down. Pulling up to LB Design Studio, we're getting loud. Season 2, headphones on, red light go, break it down.
Welcome back to the Hateful Eight Fantasy Football Podcast with your host. I'm Pickle, and with me today, as always, Blackburn.
Easy, baby.
As we said on the previous show, Trimboli would be out for the week, but he'll be back in full swing next week, and Blackburn will probably be off.
No, I'm not.
So,
sorry to disappoint you. I will be here.
But yeah, in this episode, we'll get to the rest of the Week 13 games, so all the Sunday and the Monday night game. As well as getting your lineups ready for that last Week 13 fantasy football playoff push.
Yep.
So, as always, don't forget to follow the show's Facebook, our Twitter, and our Instagram accounts. Now, onto the Week 13, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Weekly starts and sits, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
All right, the good, the bad, and the ugly, presented by StatRoute. Dominate your league. Get the stats used by the pros, any stat, any player, any team, available in under 5 seconds. Head over to statroute.com. Use promo code HATEFULFF, all caps, for 25% off your subscription. And, so I know that they're also running a special right now for $9 for the rest of the season. So it's not bad. For all the stats, what you're getting. I mean, you're getting the rest of your fantasy playoffs essentially for $9 to get stats that you can unlock to kind of look at those last-minute decisions to kind of see what Big Ben does on the road at night with rain. I mean, and you can see for the last 10 years what he did. So, I mean, to see the splits between some of these players, home and away, and even if, like, versus certain defensive coordinators, you get their high and their low. So, I mean, you can't take, when it's stats, it's stats.
Try to get every edge you can, especially in the playoffs.
Right. So, all right, the Week 13 games, I had the early games. The first one out the gate, Arizona at Green Bay. I mean, Green Bay's limping into this. Arizona's just hoping to make it out of this game with somewhat of some dignity left. So
I still think Green Bay wins.
Oh, I think Green Bay wins, but Green Bay, they are trending down pretty quick, unfortunately. Yeah. I mean, there was such high hopes that they were going to be, all right, it's Aaron Rodgers, we're good. However, you still have Mike McCarthy as your head coach, so unfortunately at this point, you're still looking at it.
At least for the rest of the season.
True. I mean, my thing is, if you've got Aaron Rodgers, who's the quarterback, from everything I'm hearing, when it's the 2-minute drill, he is in charge and he is calling plays, and that's usually when they're successful.
Right.
So why not take the play calling out of your hands, Mike McCartney, or the offensive coordinator, or whatever, and say, hey, Aaron, go do what you do best. Make some backyard plays up, and let's go win this game.
I mean, in all reality, you probably could.
Right. I mean, how many times have you seen him in the 2-minute drills?
Peyton Manning did that.
Right. So I feel like Aaron Rodgers has gotten to the point and earned enough respect in the league and should have with Mike McCarthy to be like, hey, you know what? You're right. You go ahead and do what you got to do. And if it's not successful, then we'll go back to the drawing board and we'll figure out something else. But if you just continue to kind of, I don't want to say restrain, but put clamps on him and say, hey, you can only do what I tell you to do, play-wise. You don't get the chance until it's the 2-minute drill to do what you want to do, which is where you're most successful, mind you, when you actually call your own plays. But
well, that's why he's going to be out of there at the end of the season.
True. So, the good in this one, Aaron Jones. I know we've talked about this the last couple of weeks. We've had Aaron Jones in there. He's not got into the elite status just yet, but you're not benching him. But he's more mentioned that this should be a big game for him.
Because Arizona's trash run defense.
Right. They're giving up 25 fantasy points in PPR on average weekly. So, and Aaron Jones just continued to be the main ball carrier in that offense. Williams has come in here and there, but he's not seeing anywhere close to a 50-50 split. So, Aaron Jones is still seeing, I think he's seeing somewhere around 75% of the snaps and carries. So, 25 fantasy points, even if he gets you 18, you're still happy with the day. The bad in this one, Jimmy Graham.
Thumbs down. Get it?
2 thumbs down. But that was a good one. But yeah, I mean, I know that people were like, "Oh, well, he's gonna be back last week." We're like, "He's gonna be back this week," and he's all right. He's just gonna have like a soft cast on his thumb. If dude couldn't catch, and this is what I said to Trimboli last week, if dude couldn't catch with 2 good hands, with 2 good thumbs, what makes you think he's gonna play good with 1 bad hand?
Right.
Come on now. So the bad in this one, Jimmy Graham. Arizona, this is their strength, actually. They hold the tight ends to under 10 fantasy points. So, and Jimmy Graham's been averaging somewhere around 5 to 6 fantasy points.
Perfect.
So, I mean, this is pretty much what you're expecting out of him. So, but 7 fantasy points is not a good spot that you're wanting in a PPR league.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say for a name like Jimmy Graham.
Well, Jimmy Graham and Kyle Rudolph are on my Santa's naughty list.
Do not draft next year list.
Well, God, I mean, they were supposed to be like top 3, top 5 guys, and they have not shown up.
No, and Kyle Rudolph, I mean, he's got an offensive coordinator with Filippo, who was as they called him, a tight end whisperer. Well, apparently he's not whispering enough because Kyle Rudolph has pretty well sucked all year.
Thielen and Diggs have taken everything.
Right. So, and the ugly in this one, Christian Kirk. Now, obviously, Larry Fitzgerald's starting to get better, and he's starting to kind of come back into the old Larry Fitzgerald. But Christian Kirk in this one's the ugly. Green Bay's got a horrible secondary already, and now they're dealing with injuries on top of that. So, 41 fantasy points average to the wide receiver position. So, even if Larry Fitzgerald gets you 20, that's still 21 fantasy points up for grabs. I'm not saying Kirk gets you 21 fantasy points, but I mean, he
could
should
easily get you 12 to 15.
Right. So I'm just saying, in a bind heading into the playoffs, if you're dealing with injuries, maybe you're an AJ Green owner and you're still not 100% that he's going to play this Sunday, this could be a guy that you play into your flex spot and set it and forget it. So next one I've got is Baltimore at Atlanta.
That's going to be a tough one for Atlanta.
I would say this is a really good defense against a high-scoring offense. Now, on the flip side, Baltimore's offense is but Atlanta's defense is So,
luckily, it's in the dome.
This is true. So, the good in this one, Austin Hooper, one spot in Baltimore's defense that they're not really good at is stopping the tight end. They're giving up 14 fantasy points average weekly to the tight end in a PPR standing. So, if you're needing a spark and you're needing somebody with high upside headed to that the fantasy playoffs.
I like Hooper anyway. He's turned it on the last few weeks.
He has, and he's a red zone threat. So if Atlanta gets an opportunity to get in that red zone, he's definitely a viable option. So on the flip side, the bad in this one, the Falcons running backs. I know Tevin Coleman's there, Ito Smith, but it goes back to do you know who's going to be the one that gets the touchdown? It was Tevin Coleman last week. But I just think you got Baltimore's giving up only. And now this is for the total position, 16 fantasy points in PPR.
Yeah.
Which you're like, oh, that's actually pretty good. However, there's 2 guys.
Right.
It's not like it's Zeke.
So you're looking at best case scenario, 8 points each.
I mean, you're looking at anywhere from 8 to 10 points for one guy and probably 6 points for another guy. But still, if you're playing Tevin Coleman, who has been disappointing this year since taking over for Devonta Freeman, are you really satisfied with putting him in there with where he's looking at maybe 10 to 11 fantasy points? Probably not. So, the ugly in this one, Gus Edwards, out of nowhere. Alex Collins, a scratch last week, so Gus Edwards stepped in. I think he got 12 or 13 fantasy points last week, so not bad for a guy who came in out of nowhere that you probably picked up off of waivers to play last minute. So,
and Atlanta's defense isn't the greatest.
No, Atlanta's defense gives up 34 fantasy points on average to the running back position.
There you go.
Gus Edwards is very much a high upside guy in this game, even if he only gets you 12. I mean, you see what he played last week with 12 fantasy points. He has the opportunity to get up into the 20s, maybe. I'm just saying, the ceiling is there for him in that game. Especially if Lamar Jackson's supposed to be the quarterback again, they're probably going to try to do some fancy run plays. So, Buffalo at Miami. Now, this one's interesting because Miami's offense hasn't been horrible, but they're not great. And then Buffalo's defense has actually been pretty decent. Now, their offense, not so much. So,
although they did score all over Jacksonville, which was crazy.
Wouldn't have seen that coming to that extent. But the good in this one, Frank Gore. And this is primarily because of the uncertainty of Kenyon Drake being a game-time decision, but more than likely it sounds like he's going to be out for this week. So, but Buffalo's given up 27 fantasy points right now to the running back position in PPR. And we always say, I mean, you always make it very clear, Frank Gore is guaranteed you 10 to 12 fantasy points.
8 to 12. That's Frank Gore. He's done it consistently.
So if he has the upside of potentially closer to that 20, not a bad spot for a guy that you're probably not playing unless you have to. So the bad in this one, Miami wide receivers in general. Buffalo has given up 26 fantasy points total to the wide receiver position. So, I mean, whether it's Parker or it's Still, I mean, it's just, you don't know who to play. Him and Dola. I mean, it's a crapshoot as to who's really going to be the one that week that gets the points.
Yep.
So, and the ugly in this one, I'm not saying to play him, but if you're in a bind and you need somebody with a potential spark upside, LaShawn McCoy. 32 fantasy points is what Miami is giving up to the running back position on average in a PPR scoring.
I'd throw McCoy in the flex for this game.
I would say this would be the week that you want to play him, that you feel least comfortable, that there's a good chance he's going to get you 20 fantasy points potentially. So this one, Carolina at Tampa Bay. The good in this one, DJ Moore.
Yes.
Devin Funchess missed last week, and DJ Moore was a beneficiary for sure.
He might miss this week too.
Right, so he's also a game time decision in this week. Tampa Bay has given up 40 fantasy points to the wide receiver position. So,
wow,
not bad for a guy that's probably been on your waivers till probably a couple weeks ago. So, and the bad in this one, Tampa Bay running backs.
Yeah, they've been disappointing all year. I'm very disappointed in Ronald Jones.
Yeah, Peyton Barber. I mean, with Winston back in there, the running backs tend to take a step back anyways. But Carolina's given up 22 fantasy points to the running back position on average. I mean, Chris Carson had a good game last week, but I think that's also because of the threat of the offense in general and the defense for Seattle. So Tampa Bay's defense is not good at all. So
all I know is CMC is going to feast.
Oh, my gosh. He feasted last week against Seattle's defense, and they're actually a good defense, right? I wore this specifically for that reason. I was wearing, I mean, obviously I watched it, but I wore it on Sunday. Was like, you know what? I'm gonna run CMC, and
he did, man. He went, what was it, 40? What do you have, 46?
It was like 44, 45, something like that, but still.
God.
I mean, there was one play when he ran that 59 yards and almost got a touchdown on that drive, and most running backs would have came off the field. But he was like, instead of do the little tap and I'm out, let me take a breather.
Wanted that.
He was like, no, I'm good. Let me go back in there, and then he ended up scoring the touchdown.
Yeah, let me finish it off.
Man, I mean, he has been a bright spot in fantasy football this year.
He started off kind of slow,
right?
But like the middle toward I'd say the last 4 or 5 weeks, he's really turned it on.
Right. And there's no C.J. Anderson anymore. Not that he was really much a factor, but, I mean, I remember this all season we talked about it. I said, he was, Rivera was talking about, we're going to get him a ton of carries, tons of snaps. He's going to be in there all the time. But then they went out and got C.J. Anderson, and you were like, okay, so what is it? Is this for injury purposes or is this in case he wears down, or is this to kind of like give him a little bit of a break at times, or what was it? I mean, there was a lot of concern. So he kind of slipped to the middle of the second round in most fantasy drafts. However, I'm telling you right now, Christian McCaffrey is a top 6 pick next year. I'd be very surprised if he's not in that talk.
Yeah, they're rolling. He's rolling right now.
I mean, you got running back wise next year, you're looking at Zeke, you're looking at Gurley, you're looking at Hunt, you're looking at Kamara because Ingram will be gone. And I think Christian McCaffrey's
Melvin
right.
Gordon's in there.
That's what I'm saying.
But yeah, McCaffrey's got to be in there.
He's got to be in that top 6. He's a first-round pick for sure.
David Johnson's probably going to drop a little bit.
I'm just saying, I think Christian McCaffrey's in that potential top 6 talk for sure.
Could be.
So,
especially if he keeps this up the rest of the year.
Right. The ugly in this one, Jameis Winston. Carolina is giving up 20 fantasy points on average to the quarterback position, and Jameis Winston likes to throw the ball a ton, whether for good or for bad. He's throwing the ball. So
they have to, because they're usually losing.
So I think that he may have 3 touchdowns and 2 picks, but he might also have like 300 passing yards. So it's kind of like,
plus he runs.
Right. So it's kind of like you take the good with the bad, and you just hope that at the end of the day the points are in the positive with Jameis Winston. So so he's my ugly in this game for sure.
Cameron Brate in that game also.
Right. I was gonna put him in the ugly, but I'm like, if Jameis Winston's the quarterback, there's no O.J. Howard now, you're pretty much banking on Cameron Brate to be the guy.
Well, yeah, I mean, Deshaun Jackson's banged up, so you're looking at Humphreys, Mike Evans, and Brate. That's your guys.
Right. My dad asked me last week because he was dealing with I forget which tight end. I think his tight end was on a bye, and he was like, "All right, I got a question for you." He goes, "I got to pick up a tight end for the week." And I said, "Okay, who's your tight end right now?" And he was, I forget who it was. It was either Kittle or somebody was on a bye. I was like, "Okay," and he goes, "These are the guys I got." And I said, "Take Cameron Brate." He goes, "Who is he?" And I said, "He's the tight end for the new starting tight end." And I said, "Well, he was, but." I said, O.J. Howard, who had been sharing targets with him, I said, is out for the rest of the season more than likely. I said, and him and Jameis are BFFs. So I said, go for it.
As soon as they announced O.J. Howard was on IR, Cameron Brate should have been a pickup.
Yeah, so he picked him up right when the news came out, and it worked out for him. He got, I think, like 12 or 13 fantasy points from him this week. Yeah. So not bad for a guy that you picked up last minute.
Yep.
Chicago at New York Giants. This is my final game. No, I got more games, don't I? Never mind.
Yeah, you should.
I got two more. I got ahead of myself. Chicago Bears at the New York Giants. The good in this one, the Bears defense.
Absolutely. Eli's about to get rocked.
Khalil Mack is about to be in that backfield setting up residency. So the bad in this one now, this is not me saying don't play him. This is just me saying be careful because this is a really good defense. And this defense might put enough pressure that they're going to have to start throwing the ball. And that's Saquon Barkley. I think Saquon Barkley is a good running back, a great fantasy football running back, and he seems to defy all odds. I just am worried about the Chicago defense putting pressure on Eli and Trubisky in that offense potentially putting some points on the board. And if Chicago's
Trubisky plays.
Right. If Chicago's offense scores enough to put the Giants in passing only options, Saquon's going to have to rely on catching these little dink and dunk plays,
which he's flourished with doing.
Now, the Bears have given up an average of 20 fantasy points, so you still might get a good amount of points. I'm just saying if you walk out of this game with Saquon Barkley getting you only 12 fantasy points, please don't be concerned. It's because the defense is a really good defense. That's just how they are, unfortunately, for good or for bad. I still think he's up there towards that 18-19.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. 15 to 20 is probably a good spot for him.
Right. But if he comes in at 12 or 13, don't be alarmed. Yeah. It's not that he's all of a sudden going to drop before the fantasy playoffs and, oh, my gosh, the world is ending. It's the Bears are a really good defense. So, and the ugly in this one, Allen Robinson. He has been he's non-existent, but I mean, Taylor Gabriel's there, and you got Anthony Miller, and I kind of thought maybe Anthony Miller and Allen Robinson, but the Giants are not really good against the pass.
No, they're not.
They're giving up 35 fantasy points total to the wide receiver position, so Robinson could be a touchdown guy. I mean, it could be Anthony Miller. I'm just saying, outside of Taylor Gabriel, either one of those guys, Robinson or Miller, could be viable options this week against that defense.
I really like Tariq Cohen in this game.
Tariq Cohen, I think I was going to put him, but I was like, you know what? I was just going to make note of it. I think he's the running back to have in the Bears offense at this point, unfortunately, until otherwise noted, because it just seems like Jordan Howard is kind of up, down, up, down. I mean, he's hit miss.
2 points.
Yeah, so he has one good week, and then he goes away for a couple weeks.
Which was crazy because last year he was like top 5.
Right. I just think that Matt Nagy has really, the way that they want to run this offense favors Tariq Cohen right now. So, and I just don't think that, for whatever reason, I just don't think that Jordan Howard is Matt Nagy's guy. I think you'll see, I hate to say this, Jordan Howard might be traded out in the offseason or cut.
That'd be a good pickup for somebody.
So, in the right offense, he would be a good running back. He just has to. I just don't think he's not elusive. He's not a.
No, he's a north-south guy.
Right. He's your traditional back. He's not that new age running back like a Christian McCaffrey, Tariq Cohen kind of guy where you catch out of the backfield. That's your MO, or Marlon Mack even. So, also, my game, I've got Cleveland at Houston. This could be a good one because Cleveland's on a hot streak. And
so is
Houston. That's why I'm saying it could be a good game.
8 straight wins for Houston. That offense is rolling, and Lamar Miller's coming back into play.
I know it's a long shot, but Cleveland is not looking like they look like they might be an outsider.
For what, wild card spot?
Yeah.
What's their record?
Let's see. They've won what 3 now? I think in a row.
4 or 5 wins.
They've got 4 or 5 wins. They gotta be. I mean, I said before the season started, I said don't be surprised if they're not last. If they finish and go to the wild card. And I also said don't be surprised if they're not the worst team in the division.
They're 4-6-1. I said at the beginning of the year, I remember saying they won't get past 5 wins.
So we got 13, 14, 15, 16. So they got a couple weeks to still get there. I mean,
they might get it.
Well, the Bengals is the bottom of the division, unfortunately.
Well, they've played twice already, I think, right?
Right. That's what I'm saying. I think they're the worst team in the division, unfortunately, this year. Cleveland might actually climb out of the basement, so for once. But post Hue Jackson being gone, that offense has started to get better, for good or for bad.
Yeah, the Bengals are 5-6.
Yeah, and they're going to continue to trend downward, unfortunately. The good in this one for me, Lamar Miller. I know that everyone's like, well, I mean, he had a 97-yard touchdown run, and that was pretty much it. You're right. However, Cleveland's defense, this is the one area that they're not good at, and that's stopping the run. 27 fantasy points in PPR that they give up on average to running back. So
plus Miller catches too.
Right. So, and he is still holding off Alfred Blue by getting any more touches than needed. And Deonta Foreman is still not ready like they thought he was going to be. So it's a Lamar Miller show, I still think. The bad, Deshaun Watson. And this is not because I think he's a bad quarterback. Cleveland's got a pretty good defense when it comes against quarterbacks. They're only giving up 15 fantasy points to quarterbacks this week. So they have a pretty good pass rush. And Denzel Ward's not a bad corner at all. So that's him and Hopkins is going to be a good matchup, I think, this week. It'll be interesting. So, but Deshaun Watson's running ability, I think, keeps him in this game for sure. Now the ugly, Jarvis Landry. I mean, I don't know. I don't know where he's gone. He is so like hot and cold. He goes
more cold than hot.
True. You really thought he was going to be all right. They're going to get him involved. He's a PPR monster. Baker's now the quarterback. He's just going to target the crap out of him, and it's not been like that.
No,
I mean,
David Njoku's getting a lot of targets.
That seems to be the guy who's benefiting the most from Baker Mayfield. So, and Nick Chubb. So,
well, yeah.
But yes, Jarvis Landry, I think this is a good matchup for him. Houston is giving up 38 fantasy points in total to the PPR and through PPR scoring, and Jarvis Landry is really the only receiver in that offense. I mean, you got Njoku's the tight end and Nick Chubb, but I just think that
Callaway is he started off hot, but he's kind of fallen off.
Right. So I just think that this is a game that you could potentially sit him in like your flex spot and feel pretty good about it this week. So my last game in this week is the Denver Broncos at the Cincinnati Bengals. Gosh, this is gonna be a bad game, I feel like. If you want to stream a defense this week, the Denver defense is one to go for.
Absolutely.
Cincinnati is playing their backup quarterback in Driscoll. More than likely, AJ Green is not going to be playing, so your best wide receiver, Tyler Boyd, will be locked on Chris Harris, which that could be a bad matchup for Tyler Boyd. John Ross is kind of hot and cold, and it's just kind of a rest of there. I mean, I think the best option in this game for the Bengals, if you're going to play any Bengal player, probably Joe Mixon. That's probably the only guy I would feel safe in this
Boyd
game.
and Mixon, yeah. I mean,
I just feel like Boyd might be in one of those games where he just sees a few targets because of the defense shutting him down. That's my concern. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying that's my concern with Chris Harris being locked on him. So the bad in this one, I put the Bengals wide receivers. Denver's given up 36 fantasy points total to the wide receiver position, and Boyd's the best one out of all of them, but I just have this gut feeling that he's going to potentially see a lesser amount of points just because of who's going to be shadowing him across the field. So,
right.
And I'm not 100% sold on. I think Jeff Driscoll is a good quarterback. I just think that there's going to be a couple of times pressure, feeling like they're going to be from behind. I just think there might be some bad throws. So, I don't know.
Plus he's going to have to deal with Chubb and Miller.
Yeah, that's another one. So we'll see. The ugly in this one for me, Case Keenum. And it's because Cincinnati's defense is so bad.
Right.
They're giving up 20 fantasy points to the quarterback on average.
Fire up Emmanuel Sanders.
Emmanuel Sanders will be a good one this week for sure. So Phillip Lindsay's not a bad one to play this week.
No.
Obviously, you're going to play him, but Case Keenum, if you're having to stream a quarterback this week, not a bad matchup against Cincinnati's awful defense. Would have never thought that the Cincinnati Bengals would be in this spot at the end of the season, coming down to the end of the season. So
at the beginning to the mid-season, they were on fire, and then all of a sudden the wheels just fell off.
they didn't just fall off; they disappeared. And then they tried to put, instead of putting round wheels back on, they put square
ones.
The square wheels on there, and it's just kind of trotted along.
Thump, thump.
And bringing in Hue Jackson.
Hey, everybody's making such a big deal about that. He gets fired from Cleveland. He goes to Cincinnati. I don't get what the big deal is. I mean, he got a job. You're going to turn down money. I get it that he played for Cleveland and but he came from Cincinnati where he was successful.
He's been in the AFC North for a long time.
Yeah.
So
why is everybody on his case about going to the rival team?
Well, and that's why when I heard Baker's comment, I'm like, I understand you got to find some sort of motivation to get yourself and get the team fired up. But in the big picture, it wasn't like Hugh left you hanging. He didn't choose to leave. He was fired.
Right. And let's be honest, he's a better coordinator than he is a head coach.
Right.
Some guys are like that.
And I just think that now, however, Hugh going out on all the major news networks
and bashing everything.
That's your bulletin.
Started it.
That's your bulletin board material right there.
That's why when who was it? Was it Carroll that got the interception and handed
Randall?
Randall. Yeah, intercepted the ball and just gave it to him on the sideline.
He tapped him on the helmet, kind of
Well, I mean, what are you going to do at that point?
Right, you going to punch him?
Right.
You going to Leonard Fournette him? I mean, whatever. Anyways,
he got owned right there.
So it is what it is, and I know that everyone made a big to do that Baker sidestepped him and kind of gave him that friend handshake.
Well, he went in for a hug, let's let bygones be bygones.
You pretty much trashed the whole team that you just got fired by. That It wasn't your fault that everyone sucked. However, they've won several games since you left.
Yeah, you won 3 games in 2.5 years, and they've
done that.
Pretty much doubled that.
So, oh well. Anyways, all right. That's the end of my games. You've got the midday and the evening games.
Yep. My first game is a good one. I think. Well, kind of. It's Colts Jaguars. I like the Colts in this one, obviously.
Yeah.
My good for this one? Andrew Luck.
Yeah.
He's averaging 24.5 points per game, and he's had at least 3 touchdowns in all of the last 8 games. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Jacksonville's defense has taken a slight decrease to be nice about it. They're averaging 3 points per game over the last couple games, and they're 10th against quarterbacks. Josh Allen just threw up 29 points on Jacksonville's defense.
Yeah.
The Bills.
Yeah.
Josh Allen.
With not a whole lot of options on that offense.
I also wanted to put Eric Ebron on here because with no Jack Doyle. But, I mean, that's a given with his record over the last few games.
Right.
My bad for this one is wide receiver Dante Moncrief. He's averaged 3 points per game over the last 2 games, and now Blake Bortles is gone. Kessler's in. I look for a lot of checkdowns to T.J. Yeldon.
Yeah. Or anybody.
Yeah, their wide receivers are
not good at all.
Yeah.
That's an understatement. With Cody Kessler, and that Colts defense is not bad either. That's what people. They're kind of sneaky good. That's the thing.
Yeah. I don't know. My ugly for this game is T.J. Yeldon. Obviously, no Fournette. Hyde's going to get carries in there, but I think game script is going to favor T.J. Yeldon only because they're going to be playing from behind.
Oh, yeah, most definitely.
So I like T.J. Yeldon in this one. My next game, Rams at Lions. My good for this one is Kenny Galladay. One word, volume. He's averaging 21 points per game over the last 3 games. Marvin Jones is out on IR, and they're going to have to throw to stay in the game anyway with the Rams because they're the Rams.
Right. Well, isn't their second wide receivers like T.J. Jones or something like that?
Exactly.
So,
yeah. The Rams are 27th against wide receivers. They can give up yards. So I like Kenny Galladay in this one.
And Kenny Galladay is probably going to be matched up against Marcus Peters, right?
Yeah.
And Marcus Peters has been horrible.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
Since Talib left on injury, Marcus Peters has been getting exposed.
Yeah, look at all the teams that's played the Rams. They're throwing all over them. They just it's like I said in the last show. Can you outscore them?
Right.
That's going to be the thing.
Yeah.
My bad for this game is LeGarrette Blount, especially if Kerryon Johnson doesn't play. before last week's 23-point performance, he's been averaging 1.5 points per game the prior 4 weeks.
Right. Well, and like I said, in Chicago, what was it? I said Chicago that's their worst. I said they're giving up 20 fantasy points.
Right.
So, just saying, they're giving up 20 fantasy points, and they gave up 20. What you said, 23 to LeGarrette Blount.
Yep.
So if that's not a perfect example, and let's be honest, Detroit's offense is not a running threat.
No. And Rams are 9th against running backs anyway. So
Yeah.
they're top 10. My ugly for this one is either one of the Rams tight ends. Right now we got Doyle and Howerman that went down, so if you need to stream a tight end, you can pick up Higbee. He's averaging 10 points per game.
Yeah.
Or Everett, who's averaging 13 points per game over the last 3 games. Those two guys. So 10 and 13 over the last 3 games.
It's been since Cooper Kupp was injured, I think.
Yeah.
They've kind of used them more in that possession type reception stuff. Yep.
So you pick up one of those guys for if you're streaming tight ends.
Yeah, most definitely.
Chiefs at Raiders. My good for this one is Jared Cook. In my opinion, he's the only real receiving threat they have.
Yeah.
He's averaging 11 points per game over the last 2 games, and Kansas City is 30th against tight ends. So two from the worst.
Yeah.
My bad. Any Raiders wide receiver. Any of them.
Doesn't matter.
Seth Roberts is the best option they have, and he's only averaging 7 points per game this season. So stay away from the Raiders wide receivers.
Oakland Raiders. Doesn't matter. They suck. So
Yeah. My ugly for this one is Doug Martin. He's averaged 12 points per game over the last 3 games. Kansas City is 31st against running backs. But just, I don't know, game script could favor Jalen Richard.
right now, I want to go into the points when people are like, "Oh, well, the Chiefs have a really good defense." You're telling me they give up a lot. The problem is this, because they're most of the time the Chiefs are hanging 30, 40 fantasy points on people, so they're having to throw. So more often than not, the defense is shutting down the wide receivers because that's where you're going to have to go. So the running backs on these checkdowns and a lot of short runs and draws are it's where they're becoming successful. So
Yeah, or they look bad because they have to abandon the run to throw.
Right. So I'm just temper your expectations, but
Their offense makes their defense look better than what they are. Their defense is terrible.
it really, I mean, they've gotten better, but they're still not a playoff caliber defense. Let's put it that way.
No, they're 30th against tight ends and 31st against running backs. That's not good.
Right. I was just going to say for a side note, in real playoff wise, I hope that they don't. The problem is with the Chiefs is their game is so relied upon on the offense scoring at will.
Right.
If there is a defense out there, I'm not sure that there is. Maybe the Chargers, who have a really pretty good defense, and they just got Bosa, who blew it up last week. If they run into a team with a really good defense and it slows down that offense, that might be the key factor that knocks the Chiefs out of the playoff.
Well, I like the Chargers example because their offense is they can put up points too.
Right, and they've got a legit defense. That's the difference. So we'll see.
Be interesting. My next game is Jets at Titans. Good for this one. Wide receiver Corey Davis.
Yeah.
18 points per game over the last 4 games. Mariota's throwing the ball downfield more, as it showed last night. And the Jets are 26th against wide receivers.
Right.
Bad, Derrick Henry. Every time I get the Titans, I'm putting Derrick Henry as my bad. He's averaged 5 points over the last 2 games. He's very touchdown dependent and 16th against running backs. So they're average, but like last night or the Monday night game, they didn't even run that 4th and goal or whatever. They ran it Luke Stocker, the tight end, fullback run instead of giving it to Derrick Henry.
That's the epitome of the Titans offense right there in a nutshell.
But that's what I'm saying. They're not utilizing him, so he's not relevant.
Right.
Ugly is Marcus Mariota if you need to stream a quarterback, 19 points per game. That's what he's averaging this year. He's good. He's a good stream play. That's it.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if Derrick Henry's not a end of the season cut or trade to a team that needs a true running back that give him like the one and only shot where he's not competing. So? I'm just saying if Deion Lewis is doing as well as he's been doing and they're continuing to be in that open wide kind of spread offense, I just don't think that's Derrick Henry's. That's not his MO.
Forte.
Right. It's not his forte. His Matt Forte.
Forte.
He might fit better in an offense that needs like a true running back, like a ground and pound kind of guy, like a West Coast type offense, a little bit more traditional, not the new age spread offenses. So
that's what the NFL is going to these days. So
it is. spot.
My next game should be a good one. Vikings at Patriots.
Ooh, I'm interested in this game for sure.
I am too. My good for this one, and we kind of bashed on him a little bit ago, was tight end Kyle Rudolph.
Yeah.
He's very touchdown dependent this season, but the receptions are there. He had 7 receptions last game.
Yeah, he's not putting touchdowns in the column.
And New England's weak spot on defense is the tight end spot. They're 26th against tight ends.
Yeah.
So, and they're going to be throwing a lot. I think Minnesota is.
They're going to have to.
Right. My bad for this one is Sony Michel.
Yeah.
His knee's banged up. I know, and Rex Burkhead's come back. We don't know how much he's going to play. Minnesota's 6th against running backs. Their defense is pretty good against the running back. I look for James White to have a good game just because they're going to match him up on linebackers.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, Sony Michel, you're probably going to play him if you got him, but don't expect much from him, I don't think.
Yeah, I was going to say temporary expectations, because Minnesota's no joke against the run. That's
right.
The biggest thing. And when we talk about the run, we're not going to talk about, we're not talking about like a guy who's lining up in the running back spot, like James White, and then goes out and runs these like down the sidelines or these.
No, we're talking about running the football.
Right, between the tackles or off
Right.
tackle, left and right, not the new age type of like out of the backfield like Alvin Kamara, where they line up different spots in the field and they're more pass heavy or pass catching heavy. So that's not. Sony Michel can do that, but that's what they still have James White for. So
Right. My ugly for this one is Josh Gordon. He's averaging 17 points per game over the last 3 games. He's another one that's touchdown dependent, though. Minnesota's 6th against wide receivers, but I'll still play Josh Gordon on this one.
yeah, he's got enough upside there. But he's more likely going to be probably lined up on Xavier Rhodes.
Right.
And I still think Xavier Rhodes can get exposed at times, but it just depends. Tom Brady's not a bad quarterback, so he's gonna pick his time to get Josh Gordon involved. I just think Edelman's going to be your guy that's going to get you down the field, but I still think that Josh Gordon has that upside in the red zone for sure.
Xavier Rhodes is dealing with a hamstring.
True.
He's going to play, but he's not. I don't think he's 100%.
No.
But yeah, you're going to start Gronk. You're going to start Edelman.
Right.
Next game, it's whatever. It's 49ers at Seahawks. My good for this one's Matt Breida. 25 points per game in the last 2 games. I think he's going to help more in the passing game.
Yes.
Game script especially. Seattle's 23rd against running backs.
Yes.
They're going to have to throw to stay in this one. My bad is any wide receiver for San Francisco. Garcon and Goodwin are questionable, and the rest are hot garbage
This is true.
for fantasy purposes.
Right.
I'm just being honest.
Pettis had a decent game, but it's because there was nobody else, and the defense they were playing against was So
Yeah. If your name is not George Kittle,
right.
do not play them.
Right. Seattle's defense is sneaky. They're sneaky. They've gotten better.
And it's at Seattle, which Seattle always plays a bit better at home than they do away anyway.
That's a whole nother monster in the 12th man. I'm telling you.
My ugly for this one's wide receiver Tyler Lockett.
Mm-hmm.
He's averaging 19 points per game over the last 3. He leads the team in receptions and touchdowns. And San Francisco's 17th against wide receivers. This game's going to get ugly, I think.
Yeah, I was going to say streamable defense this week is the Seattle Seahawks, even with Breida potentially doing well. Breida, you could – sad thing is, I think –
you could almost game plan for Breida.
You can put Breida in your lineup and still play the Seattle defense
Sure.
and feel okay. That's one of those matches where you're like, okay, the defense is going to do enough through sacks, potential turnovers, and maybe they might give up 14 points. But on the flip side, and Breida might get you 10 to 12 fantasy points and be okay. But I'm just saying, even David Moore, the other wide receiver,
I almost put him in here too.
He's also, he's probably more likely on your waivers, obviously, than Tyler Lockett would be, unless you're playing in a weird league. But if you miss out on the Tyler Lockett and he's not on your team, David Moore is a streamable guy this week. I just think there's going to be points going around on that Seattle offense this week.
Baldwin, Lockett, and David Moore. All 3 of them I would play.
Oh, yeah, most
But
definitely.
Lockett's getting the bigger plays and the touchdowns over Doug Baldwin.
Most definitely. Baldwin's become the Edelman, if you want to call him that. He's the possession guy. He's not down the field threat by any means. So
The next game, which is I'm pretty excited about this game, is Chargers at Steelers.
Ooh, this could be a good one.
I think it could be a shootout, especially with Steelers being at home. Big Ben always takes it up another notch at home.
He does.
Excuse me. My good for this one is running back Austin Eckler.
Yeah.
Gordon, obviously out with the MCL sprain. Eckler catches a lot. He caught 10 of 11 passes last week against Arizona. I get Pittsburgh's better than Arizona, but I'm just saying for game script purposes, he's going to have to catch a lot.
Most definitely.
They're going to have to pass to stay in the game. Pittsburgh is 7th against running back, so it's a bad matchup, but I think he's going to see enough volume running and catching to be a viable play in this game.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think Austin Eckler. This is the game that you're happy to play him in because there's a couple matchups down the road that it could be a bad day for him. But I mean, at this point, this is a good matchup because I think there's gonna be a ton of points put on the board.
Right.
For both teams.
Right. So for my bad and ugly, I couldn't put really any wide receivers for either team.
Yeah.
Because you could play anybody.
Right.
So I went to the tight ends. My bad, obviously, is Antonio Gates. He's averaging 5 points per game this season.
Yeah.
He's had 19 receptions all year. That's it.
Eckler, he had one good game, honestly.
Eckler had 10 last week by himself. Yeah, so Pittsburgh's 21st against tight ends, but do not play Antonio Gates. My ugly is Vance McDonald.
Yeah.
He's averaging 10 points per game over the last 3. Pass-heavy offense. They play better at home. I like Vance McDonald in this game.
I was gonna say they do trickle in Jesse James from time to time, but when they're in that red zone, Vance McDonald had a red zone touchdown that he dropped. He legit dropped a touchdown. I don't know what he did, if he didn't see the ball, if a light got in his eye, or I don't know what happened, but he missed. I mean, it went right through his hands. I mean, it was a wide open touchdown catch. So he's still favored by Ben in the red zone for sure.
Yeah, that's why I put the tight ends. You're going to play both running backs. You're going to play most of the receivers. So
yeah.
Last game is Monday night, Redskins at Eagles. My good for this one is Alshon Jeffrey.
Yeah.
Skins secondary is terrible. And I put Amari Cooper on Thanksgiving.
Right.
He's had 4 pedestrian games this season. The last 4 games have been, subpar for Alshon Jeffrey.
Yeah.
But he's playing Washington, and it's a prime time. And Washington's 25th against wide receivers, so I'd fire up Alshon Jeffrey this week.
Yeah, I think this is a game that you feel good about playing Alshon after the average to below average performances he's put out the last couple weeks.
Wentz too. I mean, Wentz has had .84 and then 8. So they're due for a big game, and I think this is going to be it.
Yeah.
My bad for this one is any Redskin wide receiver. There's no reliable wide receivers in Washington. Only the tight ends Reed and Davis are getting consistent targets. Everybody else is just kind of just out there.
Yeah, I know people are going to be like, well, why would you not start one of them? Because the Eagles' defense is in the secondary is hurt, and they're really down to like nothing. Well, so is the Washington Redskins wide receivers.
Paul Richardson's out for the year. Crowder's banged up. Maurice Harris is hit and miss. Josh Dawson's hit and miss at best.
Right.
Play Reed and
Vernon Davis.
Vernon Davis. Yeah.
Oh yeah, most definitely. These guys, they're the guys that you're wanting in this passing game with Colt
Especially
McCoy.
Colt McCoy. He favors Jordan Reed's targets have went up by. I think he had 13 targets 2 weeks ago when he first came in and the touchdown.
Right.
And then on Thanksgiving he had 10 targets.
Yeah.
I mean, he's getting targeted a lot.
The opportunity's there for sure. So
my ugly for this one is running back Josh Adams. 16 points per game in his 2 starts. And head coach Doug Peterson stated, quote, "We plan to give Josh more touches each week," end quote.
yeah, well, he's continued to trend upward, being successful. So, and the other 2 guys have been kind of up and down anyway. So if you got a guy, ride the hot hand and go with Josh Adams.
And the Skins struggle with running backs, especially the ones that are catching out of the backfield. Washington is 20th against running backs, so I like Josh Adams in this one.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think you probably picked him up off of waivers, probably last week or the week before that, and have been happy with him as probably your flex guy. I mean, so not a bad spot. So as we're looking at the playoff picture, like the real NFL playoff picture, who are your, we'll say, top 3 teams in the NFC? Who's your top 3 teams in the AFC?
My top 3 in the NFC are obviously the Saints are number 1.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty much a toss-up after that.
I say, do you think the Rams
Chicago,
are number 2?
Well, yeah, the Rams. Okay.
So who's the third
the Saints
team?
and the Rams. Then it's a toss-up between like Chicago. I know Chicago's record's up there. Dallas is in the mix. Washington's in the mix. Minnesota's in the mix. I mean, there's a ton of teams that's in the hunt.
Right.
So, they say, but I mean, I'm just gonna have to go with Chicago.
Yeah, I just think they've got. The thing is, their defense.
Their
I
defense
think,
is what's
going to
carrying them.
Right, and I think a good
They got a
defense.
good run game.
I was going to say a good defense against either one of those teams, high offensive scoring teams, could potentially do enough to maybe. I mean, I hate to say it, but they could be a sleeper for getting far into the playoffs based on that defense alone.
I think they could get to either the Rams or the Saints, but they're going to get knocked out over there.
Right.
They're just not going to score enough. They're not going to score enough to be able to hang with them. Their defense can make some plays. But,
right, but the defense will at some point will get gassed because they're out on the field so long.
Right. But I mean, if I had to pick between Minnesota, Washington, Dallas, Chicago, I'm going to pick Chicago.
Yeah, I was going to say my top 3 teams were obviously Saints, Rams, and then my third team, only because as of late they've started to look good with a good defense, is the Vikings. I just think they're trending upward.
Their potential's there, but they're hit and miss too.
Right.
Like you see the good games they play against Green Bay.
Right.
But then you look back when they got demolished by Buffalo.
Right. True.
I mean, I don't know.
We'll see. But now, who's your AFC teams? Obviously, Kansas City's
number 1, obviously.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd have to look at the division leaders, and
I was gonna say Chargers.
I like
would
Chargers.
Be 2.
Yeah, Chargers are up there, and
my third is the New England Patriots until someone knocks them off the mountaintop. I just think you can't count out Belichick and Brady.
Beating Belichick and Brady in Foxborough is difficult.
Well, they're only. I think if Kansas City loses a game, and they finish the season tied, obviously New England gets the go ahead because they beat them. Kansas City's got to hope that they finish number 1 because you don't want to go into Foxborough.
Especially already losing one.
Right. Foxborough is where they demolish teams that look so good throughout the season and even go in the playoffs. They come to
a dark horse team for me in the AFC is Houston Texans too.
Yeah, they're starting to trend upward at the right time.
8 straight wins. They have the offensive firepower to hang with. I'm not going to say hang with the Chiefs, but they can hang with New England.
Right.
And their defense is not bad.
No, it's getting better every week. So, okay, I was just curious because, I mean, everybody I've talked to, it seems to be dead set. Rams and Saints are 1 and 2 in some fashion.
If you look at it, what it is. The NFC, after Saints and Rams are –
it's a toss-up.
It's a crapshoot or whatever, right. But AFC seems to be pretty – it's either going to be Chiefs – or Patriots.
Yeah.
Chargers and Texans, I think, are dark horses too.
But Chargers, I mean, I really like the Chargers, and I think they have a good enough team to hang with the Chiefs. And I just think that, for whatever reason, they're kind of like, who is it as the other? They're kind of like, they're like a one and done. They do all great all year, and then they come to the playoffs, and it's like, they're done. And it's like, well,
it's like Green Bay.
Right. You're just like, what happened? You're like, what? I mean, you guys did great all year.
Well, they better hope they get Melvin Gordon back in time.
Right. So hopefully he's back for the real postseason for them. So yeah, that's all we got for today's show. I want to tell you thanks again for tuning into the YouTube and the podcast side of things. Please check out the site, thehateful8ff.com. You can find our weekly in-season articles. Don't forget to follow our personal accounts on Twitter at jpickleTH8FF, at jblackburnTH8FF, and at ftrimth8ff. Don't forget to join the Average Joe Nation, which supports the show via our patron tab on the site. Man, I am horrible today. You can get yourself your in-season league-specific help. Anything else?
Nope, that's it. Thanks for listening. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks again. Good luck this weekend, and make sure you tune in 11 Eastern Standard Time Sunday for those Q&As. Fire away those questions because that's what we're here for, to help you guys out, make some last-minute decisions. So, all right, we'll see you guys next week. Good luck. Hopefully you make your playoff push, and when you come back next week when we start talking playoffs, you guys will be able to enjoy it and not be on the outside looking in. So, we'll see you guys next week.
Deuces.
One more time. There ain't no one like these three. You know you just heard Pickle, Blackburn, and Trimboli. Give the goods talking about nothing but fantasy football. Yeah, it's your year to dominate and to wear that ring. Oh, yeah. Prepare for the draft and dial in on your craft. Quarterback, the first round is a good choice, you ask? This guy's got first round pick, a favorite? Not so fast. He failed to tune into Hateful Eight. He's a chump finishing last.